Okay. So, I noticed that 7-Minute Ministries is now the OpenedBox.com.
Yes, it is.
Tell me a little bit about why it changed.
Trying to think. It's not. I don't really think it's too complex in terms of the actual name, the Open Box. I had that name since probably 2002, and I guess most people don't know I had a hip hop site back then, and really it was just a copy of this hip hop site called hiphopgame.com. So basically, what I did with the Open Box is it was supposed to be reminiscent of maybe opening a box full of tapes or a box full of CDs or something like that. I'm not even sure how I came up with the name. But at that particular time, I had finished up my web development certificate. I was, heavy into rap music and everything in terms of the hip-hop culture. So I wanted to keep my web design skills fresh. And I also wanted to, have a site just to see how many hits I could get. So I think I had the site for roughly about 2 to 4 years before it just kind of died down, or I kind of lost interest. And at one point I was getting like 10,000 hits a day, even to the point where I was like selling mixtapes and all that stuff like that. So that's where the name stems from. So for me, in transitioning out of that, something just told me to keep that name, that maybe I would be able to utilize it in some form, shape, or fashion in another way. So when I had the idea for 7-Minute Ministries, the idea came to me. Actually, I don't know, I just woke up and started writing it, so the idea came to me. But what I realized is that the way I was going about 7-Minute Ministries was too small. So what made me realize that was, I started to get on Twitter, and there's a ton of Jesus tweeters and evangelical Christians on Twitter. I came across this thing that's called, I guess, Unashamed Impact. It's like a young adult evangelical movement. So I hop on one of their conference calls, and the person leading it, her name is like Brittany Moses or something like that. I hop on one of their calls, and she's somewhere on the West Coast, and she had people dialing in from like Europe and like Africa and all this stuff like that. So that was one actually point of inspiration for me. And so I just began to think like 7-Minute Ministries is a little bit too small, because the audience I was tailoring my posts to were Christians, and it only dealt with ministry in the sense of what the Bible had to say. It only dealt with things sort of along the lines of pretty much everything that's related to Christianity, but only from a church type sense. So your traditional church stuff. You have sermons, you may have some prayers, you may have a little bit of reflections. So I began to think, all right, maybe I'm thinking a little bit too small, because if I could have this hip-hop website, that where I was getting like 10,000 visitors a day, why in the world can't I have a site that helps people spiritually, mentally, that has the same impact? So this is how the actual name, the Open Box, ties in. For me, I tend to like things in the Bible that nobody speaks about. So one of the things that kind of stood out to me, or stands out to me now, is the idea of the Ark of the Covenant. So for those who don't know about the Ark, basically in a nutshell, it was this golden box with eagles on it, and you'll see that in the actual logo. And the Israelites actually believed that God's presence existed in this box. So, they would battle over the box. If the box was so sacred, if you touched it, people would pass out and die. They would use it for wars and stuff like that, and they would actually think that, they would win the wars based on having this actual box. Eventually, and I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but eventually the Ark of the Covenant just fades out somewhere. I think it ends up being in a temple, but after a while, there's nobody discusses it, but God still exists outside of that box. So for me, and you'll see this in the logo, I did something that's, I guess, some people might consider it a little heretical, but what I did in the logo, I photoshopped image of the Ark of the Covenant, and I took the top off. So I took the top off and set it down beneath the actual ark or the box to signify that God exists outside of the box. And so God exists outside of the box. And another thing that actually impacted my decision to do this is my world religions class. So in my world religions class, we visited a Hindu temple. We had conversation with at a mosque with people from Islam. We visited this. I wouldn't call it a Buddhist temple, but actually it was a Buddhist temple, but it was in somebody's house. And one of the things I experienced, and this may seem way far off to some traditional Christians, is for me, God exists in these other religions that aren't Christianity. I mean, having these conversations with these individuals who believe the way they did about their particular religion, and just hearing some of the similarities allowed me to understand that it could be possible that God exists outside of the box that we call the Bible. I think for me now, in learning some of the stuff I learned about the Bible in church history and seeing copies of the book of Mark from 380 AD, one of the things I realized for some Christians, we hold on to that biblical context just like the ancient Israelites did with the Ark of the Covenant. So we look at it, we hold it tight, and anything outside of that Bible or that book or that box is heretical, meaning it's not of God, it's not of Jesus, and you're not going to go to heaven if you don't believe a certain way. So for me, my purpose was to be, with the Open Box, was to be bigger than Christianity. And some people may say that that's impossible. You can't get bigger than Jesus. But what I mean by that is, even if you're not a Christian and you touch my website, what I want to be able to do is influence you in a positive way to do good. So even if an atheist hits my website, hopefully they'll be able to get something. Even if a Muslim person hits my website, maybe they'll be able to get something. And if you meet Jesus, at my website, fine, I'm happy with that. If you don't, glean what you can and just do good anyway. So what you'll start to see with the Open Box is I added health. One of the reasons I wanted to add health, especially being black, is I know we're more susceptible to certain diseases and high blood pressure and things like that. And we tend to do Daniel fast and things like that for short periods of time. And at least in doing my research, I don't think Daniel ever stopped eating vegetables. So you'll see health stuff. You'll see juicing, because I started juicing. You'll see probably we're going to have some guest writers who maybe know a little bit more about health than me. And just hopefully, I'll be able to make an impact, in the same way I was making an impact with that hip-hop website. And hopefully, with the help of everybody else out there, hopefully they'll share the information. And you'll get some good stuff. I mean, you'll still get the Christian aspect, because everything I do, I guess my foundation is Christianity, but I don't think I won't limit everything on the Open Box to just Christian text and things like that, because even at seminary we study things outside of simple Christianity, and we learn about influences in other religions and things along those lines. So that's where I'm at with that. I guess that's the end of the video.